Yeah. 5 on the floor, ride for my dogs. Where here's the thing, you can check the score. Hustle hard, couple scars, wearing bubble frogs. Just like Bucker said, you in trouble, y'all. Kept the floor playing, got it all banned. Y'all seen the block, stop with one hand. And Pat we trust.
You sound scared.
It's about have the guts, we're here to bring the heat. Y'all can hang it up.
Welcome to 5 on the Floor, a daily insider show on the Miami Heat and the NBA, featuring Ethan Skolnick, Greg Sylvander, Alex Toledo, Brady Hawk, and others from the 5 Reasons Sports Network. Also, make sure to subscribe to Off the Floor for the most heat anywhere.
Welcome back to 5 on the Floor. This is Alex Toledo here with you. I've got my guy, Brady Hawk, luckily here with me. No Ethan, no Leif tonight. It's just us. They honestly have – this is why they're they're older, they're wiser than us. They have foresight. I think – I don't know if they knew what was coming tonight, but they both picked, the maybe the greatest game all season to take off because, my goodness, 86-102 final score. Almost nostalgic seeing that final score. It really brings me back to my childhood when I would, the mid 2000s there when I first started watching basketball. Like, that's really the type of scores that it was back then. Like, the Heat not being able to get to 90 points against one of the worst teams in the league and also one of the worst defenses in the league. It's not like, oh, it's one of those teams that's kind of sneaky good at defense. No, not the case. I checked. They're just bad. The Nets are. On both ends. Can confirm. The numbers confirm that the eye test there, right? Like, there's no excuse. I don't care that you're missing the guy who was making $50 million and you didn't make, you don't have the 3 guys that you got in return, right? Like, it's frankly not an excuse, and we're going to talk about those guys later in the show. Don't you worry. But the guys that they have out there, it's more than enough to win a game in Brooklyn, right? One of the worst teams in the league, truly. There's nothing you could say about it. And so we're just going to get right to it. We're going to skip takeaways because everything we really need to talk about from this game and just going forward with the team, is going to be talked about with these segments. So we're just going to get right to it and get to the C-Arm and Staffing X-ray of the play of the game.
And now it's time for the X-Ray of the Play of the Day, brought to us by our friends over at Mobile C-Arm and Staffing Services. Nelson and his team will bring the X-ray equipment and the staffing to you. If you work in a hospital or a medical office, get a consultation today at c-armandstaffing.com or give them a call at 561-891-9620. Their fleet of trucks at your service. Again, it's Mobile C-Arm and Staffing Services, 561-891-9620. And now, the X-Ray of the Play of the Day.
Brady, the reason we're switching up the order of the segments here today, is because I want to get to something real quick here. And it's not a specific play. Thank you for this great idea. We're going to talk about essentially what this game was all about and what it came down to ultimately, which was that fourth quarter. I don't know how many times I've ever seen anything like this, right? Again, against a team that bad, right? 9-31 in the fourth quarter. That was the fourth quarter score, 9-31. I don't know how that's possible. I had to let it sit there, and I truly don't know how you go from only giving up 18 in the third to Brooklyn to giving up 31. And even more so, I don't know how you can only score 9 points in the fourth quarter on that defense. I know I'm not giving a lot there, but I think those numbers just say so much there, right? Like they had no ways of scoring. The guys that had it going early, like Terry, had really cooled down. Tyler was okay, but did not have it going in the second half. The defense just, completely went to hell there in the fourth quarter. I thought was about average, sometimes below average, sometimes above average throughout the game, kind of like what they are, inconsistent. And then the fourth quarter, all of that went out the door. It was just horrendous. They were getting into the paint. They were getting good shots. They were running out on the break on the Heat. So I'm going to pass the ball to you here because I'm frankly sick of talking about what I just watched. How did that happen?
It really is crazy because not only the 9 points in the fourth, but 2 made field goals is just insane. The first possession of the fourth quarter, they got a bucket. I think it was Jaime had a layup. They from that point
made field
on,
goals.
2 made field goals, and one of them was in the first 14 seconds. So in the final 11 minutes and 46 seconds, they had 1 made field goal. It's just insane. It was just terrible basketball. We could talk about the defense because I think that's always where it starts. But in this league, you just you cannot go 12 minutes with 1 made field goal. You just can't. You cannot have that many empty possessions. I thought they played into the half court a lot more in the fourth, and they just bogged down where there was Tyler was seeing 2 a ton. Like, I'm not going to say, it was just self-inflicted, but he was pretty much getting shut down on the perimeter where he was not able to get to his same spots. He was not getting comfortable looks out on the 3. But ultimately, the lineup that really got stagnant to start the fourth quarter was the bench lineup, was the group that had no Bam and no Tyler. And I think we're going to have to talk about the rotation and the substitution pattern here. And it's going to change here, I guess, when they get some of these guys back. But like you said before, it's no excuse. When the rhythm they've had these guys for however long Jimmy's been suspended. They could figure something out here so Terry, let me just say this. Terry had a very good start to this game. He was playing off the catch. He was playing off catch and goes. He was very efficient with the looks he was getting. I just thought he was making quick decisions. He was doing a lot of good things early in this game. I think he had 17 at halftime. The problem with that is I think Terry, once he got in that flow, he started reverting back to the other Terry Rozier habits where he starts extending plays on the ball, where what got you to that 17 points was being efficient, playing off the catch, and doing those things. And it got to a point there early in the fourth quarter where, yes, he was in a flow, but it turned into just some bad shots. It turned into some step back mid ranges. Went to going to the lane. He had a couple blocks, getting blocked at the rim, some tough finishes like that. That stuff is the part of Terry where you have to dial it back. Where once you see that starting to happen, you have to find a way, because they found a way to say, okay, we found what unlocks Terry at certain points in the game, but they cannot let him go unhinged for that amount of time. But part of why Terry was doing that was nobody else was stepping up on the ball. They didn't have as many reps from Jovic in the mid post as they did in the first half. There was just a lot of guys down the line you could point at. But the offense as a whole, it just felt like in the first half they were playing off misses and off turnovers. They were just pushing the ball. They were playing fast, and that's what led to Terry getting going. It led to the good minutes from the young guys. They had the play where Jovic kicked it ahead to Hawkes lobs it to Ware. And it's like, yeah, that's what you have to do with your youthful lineups. But when it comes to this point where you're playing these smaller lineups, there's no way you're just going to play into the half court like this. So it was just a rough game all along. I'm glad we started with the fourth quarter because this kind of summarizes it. I thought they had decent moments in the first half. It was just a total collapse. And some of the guys that had somewhat found opportunities in the first half, they were totally bogged down. Like, I don't know what they're going to do, Alex, in a game where Tyler just cannot find his offensive spots, especially without the newcoming guys. Like with this specific roster, if Tyler's getting shut down and cannot get an open look or a clean look that he feels is there, it's going to lead to a 9-point quarter and 2 made field goals.
No doubt. And I think that's something that we were, pointing out even, in the stretch when Jimmy has been out throughout all the suspensions, and even with the games that he was playing where it was obvious he wasn't giving it his all anymore. I think it's become obvious that now, like, for everything that Tyler has done and all the good grace he has now, I think, with the organization, the fan base, and everybody, great season, rightfully an all-star, all that. Now it's on him, and he's going to be the focus. And we've seen it, in spurts throughout times. Now he's the focus every game. I think he's pretty good at handling it, but that doesn't mean that, like, him handling it and being able to make the right reads more often than not, even despite some of these bad games, like when he is not shooting the ball well, it just puts so much pressure on the rest of the team to convert at a high level, because they've become like, I feel very much a team that it's about Tyler and it's about the threes. And those are like, those are kind of the indicators for their offense. I think as you could throw the assists to turnovers in there, right? But I think just in general, like, they don't have a lot of guys that they can go to create offense at a consistent rate. And I think that's where Terry and Jaime kind of are the X factors there, because I think for the most part, even though they have some bad games every now and then, Tyler and Duncan are pretty consistent in what they give you offensively. I think Nico, another guy who might have some ups and downs, but is pretty consistent as far as like knowing their limits, giving you what they give you, right? I think the ones that just in general that you've been wanting to see more from all season, and both have, I'd say, ticked up a little bit at least as of late, are Terry and Jaime. And I think like you gotta keep those guys like feeling themselves, I think, in these bench units, because those bench units are kind of what are, I think, deciding these games. I think they have a good enough like team with kind of their best players on the floor in the sense. Like I feel like they can defend at a decent enough level. I feel like they've got their reliable sources of offense. Like you kind of know what they want to get to. The bench is kind of like where the question marks are. You don't know what you're going to get on either end of the floor. Like what's going to go well tonight and what isn't. And I mean, scoring again 9 points in the fourth quarter is just unbelievable. And that might be just the most telling stat of them all, but I've got some more. And I just feel like I've got to do my duty, unfortunately, and give you guys the vegetables that you don't want to eat, right? Like I know nobody wants to hear this, but third percentile 89 offensive rating for the Heat overall. That's awful. Horrendous. If you look at it in the half court, just under 76 offensive rating. Now, you got to give them credit because they held the Nets to below average offensive rating on, half court and overall. So you give them credit there, but it's like you look at the 44% at the rim. That's how much that the Heat went 4 of 9 at the rim. These are shots within 4 feet. Like these are shots that are supposed to be gimmies. When you're a team like this that has a small margin for error offensively, like these are the shots you got to be converting. Another huge stat that I should have probably mentioned earlier, getting out rebounded by 18, and it's not just in one aspect of rebounding. They got out rebounded by 7 on the offensive boards and gave up 11 on the defensive boards. Like these are effort things. These are detail things. And despite all, like, whatever problems we may talk about with their personnel, there's no excuse. Like there's no excuse for, performances like this. Like when that you're a team that's just constantly hovering around the play-in, and even though there's kind of a floor as to how, low they can fall. And I know fans are probably there's a certain amount of fans rooting for the 2 lottery picks. The Heat are still trying to win games. Spo is still trying to win games. So if that's the case, like, you can't do that. Simply
and
put,
when the Nets are trying to lose games right now.
That's the thing. Like,
yeah.
like everybody's just like getting in the way of their own agendas, right? Like just basically giving it to the Nets with all these like second chance points you're giving them, like just missing all these shots, right? And just a quick thing here in the fourth quarter, right? We've been talked about the 9-31 score. How about a 37 offensive rating for the Heat in the whole fourth quarter? 37. I mean, 135 on the defensive rating for the fourth quarter. So just abysmal, truly, on both ends. Like they've got to fix this. Like there was so many lineups tonight, especially in that fourth quarter, but just throughout, like these lineups where Bam and Haywood weren't in the game, where I'm like, there's a few guys that I think are going to be good options to throw into some of these lineups, and I want to get to them here.
And now it's time for the A Aggressive Insurance Player of the Night, sponsored by our friend Lynette. You can find her at insurancebylynette.com. That's with 2 N's and 2 T's, insurancebylynette.com. If you need car insurance, renter's insurance, homeowner's insurance, or any other type of insurance, she's the person to go to. Based in Lauderhill, she services the entire Tri-County area here in South Florida, and she will make sure to get you the best deal. She'll probably talk to you about the Heat while you're at it. Reach out to her, insurancebylynette.com. And now, the player of the game.
So, Brady, with the trade that was made the other day, I think a lot of fans were obviously hoping to see those guys play tonight in a game where, you thought going into the game was low stakes, where they could try different lineups, as opposed to the next 2 games coming up, where it's Boston and then OKC and then Dallas, so on and so forth, right? Like some real tests there while you're trying to incorporate some guys who, even though they may seem like guys who are pretty good fits, and you don't have to completely turn your whole playbook upside down or anything like that. You're still incorporating them versus the best teams in the league, frankly. As much as I hate to say it, Boston, is Boston. And Boston and OKC, the two best teams in the league. That's what you got up next. They're getting thrown right into the fire. And we're still going to talk about this game a little bit more, but I do just want to, talk about the new guys because I think fans are excited to see them. I feel like they've gotten a pretty good response all over social media, on every platform. That's not usually the case when it comes to Heat fans. There's usually some divides between the social platforms, but I think like the lineups that you saw tonight, the ones where it's like Ware, Jovic, Terry, Tyler, I just feel some of these lineups, they need perimeter defense. When Hayward and Bam are not in the game, frankly, I'm worried. That's kind of where I'm at. And that's no shot at Ware, by the way, because I think Ware is more than like able to man that, but not if the perimeter defenders are constantly getting blown by and making mistakes. And even tonight, like they didn't use the zone as much as they have. Like I feel like they've been kind of in the extreme in zone usage as of late. And tonight they went away from it against a bad team. And they were just getting cut up, man. Like their defense was real bad. And as we've talked about in these episodes, there's more to them than just defense. But that's the theme of kind of the guys that they added. And something that I was thinking about recently, it kind of reminds me in a way, obviously, there's some major differences. But the 2020 acquisitions of Crowder, Iguodala, and Solomon Hill, where it's like these are three guys who are just going to bolster you. Like they're role guys. You know what they're going to do. They're going to bolster your defense. I think Wiggins is obviously much better than any of those guys. So it's not a perfect parallel, but it's like those guys were needed at the time. And it was a breath of fresh air to just get guys who stabilize your rotation in that way, where it's like, yeah, their offense is still going to stink, but at least now they'll get some guys in there who will really make you an honest defense where you're not having to zone because you're scared of the other team. Like you can zone if you want to, but you don't have to. Right? Like you can go back to doing different coverages. Like the margin for error, I think, gets better for you if you're the Heat, gets a little bigger, because if you're able to just be a strong defense, I think they project to be a pretty strong defense if they incorporate all three of these guys. I think it just makes things so much easier for them, because even though you're still going to be, I think, not great on offense, like just kind of holding teams down in transition on the other end of the floor, holding teams to, below their averages. I think, not getting destroyed on the boards. These little things are going to help you win games so much more. And I think all these guys kind of contribute to that and add to that theme. What do you think about kind of what they can bring, and specifically when you think about the way that this game kind of played out?
Yeah, it's crazy when we're talking about a 9-point offensive quarter and we're talking about, the three defensive guys coming in and changing the energy. But the overall point is the defense needs to be better too. They have to pick a direction. Even it seemed like this, so Brooklyn really bodied them up and kind of walled them off offensively. All the teams that do that to Miami are the teams that have positional size on the wing, where they just have big wings that can switch around and double out, and they just have the ability just to bother the guards, where that's kind of been the one missing piece of Miami's defensive system. Yes, they have Bam as the anchor to it all. Yes, they have Ware now to add in to kind of be the funnel in to the drop. But as you mentioned before, they don't have the perimeter stoppers at the moment within these lineups. So I think this will just make more sense in a lot of these lineups. But the question will end up being, are they going to have moments like tonight where they can't score? The question will be what Andrew Wiggins' role looks like with this team. I'm interested in it just because I think he's really going to help Tyler out. And in the way I mean that is, yes, they have some other guys like Jaime or Jovic that can run a pick and roll. But it's a difference when a guy has an ability to hit a pull-up, to, have the flexibility to be able to make plays in the lane where you have certain combos and moves you could get to and finish through it. Like that, it's just a different version than Nikola Jovic coming off the screen where they know he's kind of looking to pass or he's going to try to get all the way to the cup. Jaime, who's going to get to the cup or do a spin. So that type of stuff does change things for Tyler on the perimeter that I think it could help out. So I'm interested to see the way that develops, but ultimately they do have to pick a direction here, as we've been saying with defense. Maybe from the start of the game, they have to force more turnovers. And it's tough to say force more turnovers. When I say more, I don't mean more than them, because they're turning the ball over a ton right now. And that's something in itself. I don't really know how that's going to change with these specific pickups. I don't see I'm not going to sit here and act like picking up, these specific guys, like that's going to tone down. I think with a youthful team, turnovers are going to happen, but you better be able to get them yourself. You better be able to go turn the ball over on the other end and run fast and play into transition, because as much as they have moments and flashes where they play fast, then there'll be a pocket of the game where they just don't play fast at all. Then it just totally bogs down to half-court basketball, and that's kind of what happened there. So I'm interested to see what changes. As Tyler said today, it's, they're looking just for new life, some new energy. And I think if forgetting the basketball stuff, forgetting the offense, forgetting the defense, this team has been missing an energizer in this locker room for way too long at this point. And then you add in the Jimmy stuff hovering over this entire season. They just need something new. They where was that for a moment? Like they had that Khalil Ware, thing, but it was in the midst of the Jimmy stuff. This just feels like something that it can at least energize them to get to some different looks, because right now it's repetitive. It's getting a little repetitive with a lot of the stuff they're running. And that's why, Tyler, Spo, all these guys keep talking about trying to find consistency, because it's pretty simple. I mean, you look at record wise, they're bouncing one game under, one game over at 500. Within a game, they have one good quarter. They have one 9-point quarter. They are just an inconsistent group. They could beat anybody. They could lose to anybody. Like there's just all these things. And I don't know if that's going to change. I don't think that changes with these guys, but it is just something to monitor here. And maybe they can get a little bit new life and just see something different. Just get a different look with this unit.
No doubt. I think the new life point is 100% valid. And I don't think, the three of these guys, even if you play all of them, it's going to change their outlook in any significant way. But you're 100% right in everything you said there, but specifically a couple of things when you mentioned how much, like Wiggins, for example, is going to help out Tyler. The helping out is so key there. That's what they do. Wiggins, Mitchell, Anderson, different degrees, right? Like but that's what they do, is they help out the other guys. And I think they're going to help. I think they're going to help, the guys on this team just do their job in a better way, right? I think when you're out there and you're getting constantly scored on and you're not able to score, like both of those things are happening concurrently. It's like you've kind of held things together throughout a game, and then you see one like in a game like tonight, you kind of held the game together with tape. Like it wasn't necessarily out of control at any point. Like it was fine. Things were fine. And then in the fourth quarter, like that happens. And then you mentioned like they've done this all season where they just have really bad stretches. Some people have pointed out it's at the end of quarters. Like the time to me doesn't necessarily matter as much. Like what time of the game. It's more about why is it happening so much? And I think that's what they help with. I don't think it's going to change their offense in any significant way. I think Wiggins in the starting lineup over Highsmith is a pretty significant offensive upgrade, and not in a way of like, oh, they've got a scorer there. But for as much as I appreciate Haywood, I feel like I give him love and his flowers and all that on this show, and I still want him to be in the rotation with these guys, and think he still will be. Wiggins is much more of a scoring threat. He's more willing to shoot the ball from three. He's obviously much more athletic, can get downhill, better than Haywood, even though I really like that Haywood spin and the Haywood floater. Like, Haywood's solid, man. Like, I'm not trying to shade him here, but Wiggins is an upgrade on the offensive end there. And I think that's going to help stabilize that lineup, right? On the defensive end, just adding all these guys, like, I think it's going to help get rid of some of these stretches. Maybe they won't happen as often where things are getting out of control, or because you're scoring, the other team is just getting out on the break and doing everything they want. Like, I think they're going to be a lot more solid on the defensive end, and that's going to just calm things down. And I think there's going to be more clutch games as a result, because there's going to be less of these games that are kind of over before the game ends. And I think that's my random prediction that I'm throwing in here, is we're going to see some more clutch games as the season goes on, if the defense stabilizes the way that I'm expecting it to. I'm looking forward to seeing those guys. And by the way, I know people are excited for Wiggins and Mitchell. I think Kyle Anderson, kind of in similar way to what I said before the season about Burks, is one of those guys that Spo is going to like and is sneaky going to play every now and then. Maybe not every night, but with, the smart help defenders who's like 6'9", strong. They've liked him in the past. Smart player who is like really loves to set people up. He's got the float. Like, I think I'm seeing sort of a role. I can picture a role sort of like what PJ was doing for them, where there's some mid-post facilitation. There's a lot of screening. There's the occasional floaters when he's wide open. He's more than willing to set people up. He's obviously, I think, that's where he exceeds. PJ there is he's always been a great facilitator and is obviously taller. Like, he's just one of those guys where you got to build the right lineups around him. I'm not sure how often he plays, but if they really want to like lean into size and defense, they've got another guy that they can throw in there kind of on the wings. And so I'm interested to see what these guys do. But now I feel like I've been talking for too long at this point, so I'm going to get to the next segment so I can set Brady up one more time.
And now it's time for our Defending the House segment, sponsored by our friends over at The Real Estate Shop. You can find them at realestateshopfl.com. That's with 2 P's and an E, realestateshopfl.com, or at the Fort Lauderdale Realtor on Instagram. This is Javier Iglesias and Amanda Martin. They help buyers and sellers in real estate. They're nimble and protective of their clients. They service the entire Tri-County area. That's Miami-Dade, Broward, and Palm Beach counties with a proven on-market strategy. The Real Estate Shop sellers earn the most money in the shortest time frame because Amanda and Javier have a deep understanding of the local market. So check them out. Again, it's at the Fort Lauderdale Realtor on Instagram, realestateshopfl.com, or give them a call at 954-268-9812. And now, who defended the house?
Let me ask you this one, because to play off the defending the house thing, there hasn't been a lot of defending of Eric Spoelstra as of late with some of the decisions he's been making. I want to ask you, because what are your thoughts? Because I hinted at it earlier, but I think it is something we could probably do a whole episode on, of the decisions he's made with the players that he has, but with the rotation. And I don't even want to say the rotation, because it's not. When people say that, it's not about the guys he's playing usually. It's sometimes, to me, it's the substitution pattern. It's the guys he's playing with each other and the certain units he's getting to. So what have you thought about the certain patterns he's gone to, and what do you kind of think he should get to?
We were talking about this on Playback tonight, and of course, every time I say the word Playback, I'm contractually obligated to say, go check us out every game, playback.tv/5RSN. Oh my God. Speaking of that, might as well get it out of the way now. Check us out on Discord, baby. Our Off the Floor Discord server, $2.99 a month. Link in the description. That's where all the information was being shared. All the good stuff behind the scenes that Ethan and Leif, aren't always reporting on social media. You're getting it there. You're getting the constant chats. Like, if you're a real Heat sicko, if you're a Heat diehard, like, this is the place for you. Everything goes there. Our analysis, our opinions, we're chatting with the people, popping in day and night. And honestly, it's a good time being able to interact with everybody like that. We try to keep the place, away from people insulting each other and all that. And I would say, even with the people, the occasional trolling, I would say it's a good time. If you want Heat basketball talk, if you want the information, you want the reporting first, all our coverage, all of it goes there. So of course, go check that out. So Brady, back to your question. I'm sorry, I had to make sure to do the housekeeping here before Ethan suspends me indefinitely. I think that the stuff with the rotation tonight was really perplexing, and it's been a thing throughout the season where Terry nights, right? And I'm not going to put this all on him, so it's not what I'm doing here, because he's been better as of late. Like you mentioned, like we talked about, he had a great start to this game, and that's the point. That's the thing with Terry, is that he is, ever since he got put back down to the bench, he's kind of been in this role where you would think of him as like this, scoring guard who can give you these scoring bursts, and I think that's where he should be. The problem is when you do more than that and you play him with Tyler for 9 straight minutes in the fourth quarter. And I'm not saying I don't know how much he played with Tyler or didn't with tonight specifically. I'm just throwing out a number because that feels like that's constantly what happens, is he starts to have a good night, and instead of, like, as opposed to the nights where he's not shooting well, he maybe doesn't play quite as much. He has an okay night and they just lean into him way too much. I think he needs to be taken out. And even though I'm not a fan of having him in the fourth quarter for a lot of these games, like, if you want to have him in that early fourth quarter lineup, that's one thing. Don't have him the entire fourth quarter or like most of the fourth quarter. I'm just not a fan of it. And that's not the only problem. Like, they weren't able to score or defend in that fourth quarter tonight. Their best perimeter defender at the moment is Haywood Highsmith. He wasn't on the floor. And Larson, for as much as I like his defense, tonight wasn't his night either with the foul calls. He does not have a great whistle right now as a rookie. Like, I think they needed Haywood, and Duncan, I think they needed his offense.
I'd go Burks.
And where to?
But I just think when I don't want to be this be the situation where like the guy you mentioned the guy that didn't play, like acting like that would have fixed all your
But
problems.
those are their best players.
But no, I'm saying in terms of Alec Burks. Like I think this is a game where you do play, you bring in Burks off the bench and try to spark something, even if it's late in the fourth quarter, just to see if you can get some offense going. Like I'm saying, there's certain decisions where you're riding out a lineup that doesn't feel like there is a way out. Like it just feels like it hit an offensive wall and there's no getting over that wall. Like you're just basically just going to keep hitting that wall until you get Tyler and Bam back in. And Tyler and Bam coming back in didn't really save you either. So I just think, of course, they don't have that many options right now. They had some guys on the way out where, we keep mentioning they have guys coming in. But I do think like even a guy like Burks could spark things. And as you said, like I just think they have to dial things back when a guy like Terry gets into a flow early and then it just totally falls into that style. And not to keep putting it on him, but it's like this is what happens with a ton of guys. Like you cannot, it could be one of the young guys as well. Like if they hit a certain point where they're having a moment there, like I feel like there has to be a shorter leash at times with this roster when you have a bunch of young guys playing. So I don't know. I just think there's a lot of things we could point at with some decisions they're making. Maybe they get some clarity here. I know they keep saying that word clarity, but I just think that even with the new guys, they're going to keep running into these same problems if they keep doing the same things. And this was a perfect example against a pretty bad Brooklyn Nets team that I literally saw like Brooklyn people were like mad that they won this game. So it's like, this is what you're dealing with.
They should be
before going to play Boston here.
No doubt. I think they absolutely should be mad. And, like both sides, both fan bases come out of this just angry. Like the Nets have nothing, like literally no reason to win. Like this is, this hyped up draft. Like they have every reason to lose games and frankly can do it without trying. Like they just are not a good team, are not very talented. And that's why it's just so perplexing that you put up this game. Maybe I'm being reactive and reactionary in general, but this is probably their worst loss of the season, in my opinion. Just in the way that it happened. There had plenty of bad ones, but the way that this would happen against this team, I don't care. I don't care how many guys you're expecting that you don't have right now. There's just nothing. Like we were talking about the lineups there. The lineup, and I'm with you. Like the early fourth quarters is usually like this countdown until your best players get back in, and you just hope it doesn't, get out of control in that stretch. But then when Tyler and Bam did come back in the game in the fourth quarter, the lineup that they had out there for 3.5 minutes, which was Terry, Bam, Tyler, Jovic, and Pella, had a minus 100 net rating. And all of that was on the defensive side because their offensive rating was 0. So that was with the best players on the floor. So the lineup actually without Tyler and Bam that played 3.5 minutes was better, or actually 4 minutes, which was Terry, Ware, Jaquez, Duncan, and Jovic. And that one was also horrendous, but at least they put up a 44 offensive rating, as opposed to 0. And 44 is still horrendous. So that just tells you the level of how bad this was. Like looking at the numbers, it's just inexcusable. Like it's just hard to emphasize how bad of a loss it was. And it's like looking at it right now, like the Heat shot 40% on their twos, 20 of 50. How aren't those supposed to be the easy ones? Aren't you guys like not shooting these mid-range shots anymore? And it's all about the easy ones, all the great shots in the paint. What happened to that? You took 50 shots from 2 and converted on 40%, a 45 true shooting percentage. That is awful. 45 is an okay field goal percentage. True shooting, that's like a 25 field goal percentage right there. Like it's just horrendous, man. Just looking at these stats, it just, you can't have nights like this when you're a team trying to fight your way out of the play-in. But maybe this is all for the better. Maybe this is just, maybe you end up with the 2 lottery picks after all, and that's not the worst thing in the world. But in reality, we know that there's a certain floor with their standings there. I think in all likelihood, they're headed for the play-in at worst. I would be shocked if they were to find a way to drop below that. And I think, like even below the 8th seed. So they have to just keep moving forward because they're looking at themselves as a playoff team. Like they're, I just want to see them lean into the identity at this point because this was the ultimate example that they just don't have the personnel to lean into the offensive side of it. Even if you play Burks, who I like, I like Burks. And even if Terry is looking a little bit better and you're not playing him in the fourth quarters as much, which would be a nice, refreshing change of pace too, like it's not enough offense. It's just not. I think they've got to lead into the defensive side. I think I want to see these. I want to see these type of scores that we saw tonight, but in a different way. I want to see the other team have a lower score than the Heat's very low score. How about that for a change? I want the Heat to score 92, but how about the other team score 87? That's what I want to see them do. That's the change, because we just know it's not going to be on the offensive side. Really just be a pain in the ass. I want to see them lean into that. It's going to be easier said than done. Just incorporating 3 guys doesn't do it by himself. You got to commit to the details and just not let a loss like this happen again. Brady, I don't know if you got anything else you want to share, because outside of that, I feel like I'm just depressing people at this point.
Yeah, last thing I'll say is the Khalil Ware thing. I mean, when you talk about leaning into certain things, like, I know he didn't have the greatest game. He had a kind of a rough first half. He was 1 for 7 at some point. He just couldn't really find a way to score. But he was rebounding well. Like, at least you had somewhat of an identity there, and at least defensively you have some size where at least you could finish off some possessions.
I mean, they were getting into the paint at will. It would have been nice to have him down there.
Right, right. So it's like at least something where they're getting walled off on the perimeter as well, that you have a valve on the short roll, and where just to kind of put some type of pressure on the inside. Because you mentioned, I was going to mention that before, like the 3-point shooting wasn't really the problem. It was the stuff inside the arc. It was the twos. It was the fact that they were not afraid of Miami shooting twos. Like, they were pretty much like allowing Miami to take some of those shots. But the overall point I was trying to make was that I would play Ware through those issues. Like, play him through it. If you still lose this game, because you probably do, but you play him through that. Like, figure out a way to at least lean into something and try to see if you could find an advantage. And just, I think he needs these reps. I just think you play through something. At least you could rebound a little better. You have a chance when you're not making anything. Maybe you get some second chance opportunities. Like, if you can't make a single, like, more than 2 field goals in 12 minutes. So that'll be an interesting thing to do. Like, we keep talking about that closing lineup they'll get to eventually, which is Tyler, Wiggins, Jovic, Bam Ware. Like, they could do something like that. And we joked around before, but the reality is it's probably going to be like Terry, Tyler with, like it's, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's going to be something that it's going to be a small guard lineup that we're eventually going to be talking about, and that they need to go back to the stuff.
Can they at least play the other small guard? Can they play Davion Mitchell if they want to play 3 guards?
I'm interested. At least that way you can lean into a certain style and maybe you can create some turnovers. I'm in to see what that could bring. But the overall point was just that I would play Ware through some of the struggles, especially in a game like this. Even though I think he struggled the last Brooklyn game, I want to say as well. Like, it wasn't. I think Claxton kind of gave him some problems, but I would play him through it. No
doubt, he had a weird game tonight that I think was kind of like an anomaly as far as the paint finishing. I think he was 4 of 10 from 2, and a lot of it was like missed putbacks. I feel like his touch wasn't there tonight like it usually is. I think he has like a pretty solid touch for a rookie, and it wasn't really there for him tonight. That's not something I'm worried about happening too often, even though, teams are going to be scouting for him now and knowing that he's a lob threat. He still gets those, What I have noticed is the threes have come down a lot for him. And I think there's a little bit of Spo there. And when I say a little bit, I mean a lot, because it's usually what we see with Spo, Biggs. I mean, is that, I think a lot of them have thought of themselves as like pretty good shooters, and then they don't shoot as much as you think. And I don't know if that's already happened with Ware. I don't really want that to be the case. I don't want him taking 7 or 8, but I think he's a more confident shooter than Bam. If you're going to have him play together, like, yeah, I want him taking a couple. I want him taking maybe 4, I think that's fine for him. He certainly wants to take them. And you know me, like, I'm not one that's like, yeah, have a bad shooter, take a bunch of shots. I don't really think I think he's fine there when he takes the open ones and it's not early shot clock, threes. I'd like to see him take some of those again, because, there's only so much you can do in the paint. I think you've got to have defenses, defend you in an honest way where they're worried at least a little bit about the shot. But just some other stats that I was looking at here. I'm sorry, guys. I really am. But these stats just stand out and so much that I feel like I have to give them. It's like I have to do my duty here. 35% on jump shots for the Heat. 26% on layups. 6 of 23 26% on layups. I don't understand. 1 of 5 on floaters. 34% overall in the half court. And then this might be the worst one. I don't know, like, surprisingly there's a worse one. 1 of 13, 7% on second chance points. 1 of 13. How is that possible? How is that 1 of 13 on, like, I get it. Those are not always like the easiest shots. They're not always wide open. So you know what I mean? Like there's other guys there fighting too. 1 of 13 is insane. 26% on layups is insane. 35 on jumper. Again, like, this is an anomaly. They're not a good offense. They're not this bad. I know they're not this bad because this is not a type of performance you see very often. They're going to be better than this, and they have to be better than this, or else, we're going to be doing a show like midway through the third quarter of the Celtics game, because that's the thing that's not going to happen with the Celtics is it's not going to be a game in the fourth quarter if you play anywhere near this way early on in that game. They'll get you out of there real quick, and that's the last thing I think anybody wants to see in the debut of all these guys. And they've got to be better. And we said we were going to do a short show, and here we are doing 40 minutes, and that's on me. I'm going to hold myself accountable here. But there was just so much to talk about with how poorly this went. And yeah, man, thank you, Brady, for putting up with me. Thank you to the audience for putting up with me. I'm going to take the win in the fact that I didn't lag tonight, I think. So I'm going to celebrate that and just act like this game didn't happen, and, look forward to the guys, the infusion of talent that they're getting in the next game. So I'll be looking forward to that. Make sure to check us out on Playback and Discord. We're going to have you covered for that game, and we're going to be updating you throughout. Thank you, guys. Shout out to all the sponsors. Shout out to Insurance by Lynette, Real Estate Shop, C. Arman Staffing. Thank you, guys. Have a good night.